I love Star Wars, and oh my goodness, Padme Amidala, what an icon. So if you're like me and you love Star Wars, you know how incredible Padme's costumes are. Genuinely, every single look this queen was wearing absolutely ate up. I feel like every girl who watches Star Wars dreams of having her wardrobe, myself included. For me, one of my favourite dresses that she wears, her blue veranda nightgown. It is so gorgeous. The drape details, the cape, everything. I just love it. So you know what? I'm gonna make that dress because I've got free will, a sewing machine, and a little bit of time on my hands, so why not? So come with me to make Padme Amidala's blue veranda nightgown. Let's go. Okay, so the thing with this dress is that it looks deceptively simple. If you look at it, you might be thinking, that's a pretty plain dress, that's a pretty simple dress. But no, you'd be wrong. And don't worry, it looks simple, so you're supposed to think it's simple. It's not your fault. The shape of the pieces, the detailed stitching, like the cape, it looks like it should be easy to make, but no. But you know what? That's never stopped me before, and I like making my life difficult, so we're gonna do it anyway. That being said, come with me to make Padme Amidala's blue nightgown. Let's go. Oh, also, maybe like this video if you enjoy it, maybe subscribe if you want to see more. It's up to you. But let's go. Okay, so first off, I wanted to start by tackling the back draped pieces, or the cloak. So these draped panels are quite infamous for this dress because they obviously look quite unique. Now, there's definitely places online where you can find help for this, which I didn't consider at the time, so spent ages instead just trying to figure out myself. Karis, who is the Padme expert, did also offer her wise advice, so thank you very much. It was very much appreciated. But anyway, I laid out some lining fabric, which I got secondhand, and I wasn't planning on using anyway, so I could do a sort of practice run. I then started sketching out this sort of curved rectangle shape. I'm not gonna lie, trying to describe it is pretty much impossible, but you'll see it when I cut it out. Because it sort of folds over on itself multiple times to give that specific drape. It's curved, but also like a rectangle, but not. So this was it on my shoulder. I tried a million different ways of draping it, because another key component is that the two drape pieces connect in the middle at certain points, which then allows them to keep their shape and basically not become one massive blob of fabric. So here's what the trial piece looks like draped on the floor versus draped on my shoulder. Since I was happy with how this was looking, next was onto cutting it out on the actual fabric, which of course was terrifying. I only just had the right amount of fabric, so there was no room for error with this, hence the mock-up. I essentially used the mock-up piece as a template and traced, then cut around it. I added a little extra around the edges because since the fabric frays, I knew I was going to need a little bit of extra room to hem it. This gives you a look at what the shape actually is now that it's cut out. The bit that curves over is the bit that sits at the top, and the other side is the bottom. Okay, so now we can actually start some sewing. I didn't have any bobbins, so that was step number one. Then all I was doing was hemming the large draped piece with a small rolled hem. This can be a bit frustrating because the pieces are curved, but as long as you go slow and steady, you'll get there in the end. It is important to bear in mind as well, if the fabric you're using is like mine, it is going to be slippery, and you just need to be careful that your machine doesn't eat it up or it slips away. So here's just a little look at what the cape looks like draped on my mannequin. This is back home because I didn't have it with me at uni, but you can see what I mean where I say it connects at certain points in the middle. But yeah, it drapes really nicely. I'm really happy with how this looks. Not too bad. Next is on to actually cutting the rest of the pieces out. Am I using a pattern? No. No, I am not. I did, however, sketch out on paper first what I thought the pattern pieces would look like. I did the maths and just went from there. Is this a slightly unhinged, incredibly improper way of doing things? Yes, of course, but we're doing it anyway. If it works, and I trust my brain to know what's up. Anyway, so the main four front pieces are these sort of triangle shapes. They're actually quite skinny, but then they're connected, and in between them they have the hand stitching. So I start with them as you can see here. I then cut out the side pieces, which are similar except the top is much wider and curves. This is because this piece needs to extend from the centre of my chest to under my arm. I cut this piece out twice, remembering to flip it before I cut it the second piece, so it's mirrored. Otherwise, we'd have a problem since we'd have two of the same pieces. I
I then cut the straps out, which was super simple since they were just long rectangle shapes. I then decided to sew the straps, so I folded them in half, right sides facing, and sewed along the edge. Essentially what we're doing here is creating really long tubes. After sewing, I trim the excess, turn them inside out, and iron them flat. To turn them inside out, I use my favourite hack of using a safety pin and then sort of pushing that through to get it the right way, which is always a little bit of a faff, but it makes it so much easier than any other way. And here we have some lovely sleeve straps.
Okay, so we have a slight problem. Of course we do. So obviously the fabric arrived, which I was very excited about. Oh my god, absolute nightmare. It got delivered to the wrong address. So I ordered it while I was at uni and I accidentally put the wrong postcode in by one letter. So it ended up getting delivered to a housing estate like 5 minutes across the road. It was fine, I got it back. Thank you to the people who gave me my parcel back. Not that they would do much with fabric unless they also knew how to sew. But got the fabric, very exciting. The shine is perfect, the drape really good, the colour. The colour is just, okay, it's silver. It's silver, it's not blue. And in certain lighting, it looks blue. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're blue. In other lighting, I'm like, no, that's grey. That is silver. So, because like a big iconic part of this dress is that it's very blue, I'm gonna dye it. Because when has that ever gone wrong for me? So we're gonna dye, that's the plan. The plan is, I've ordered some ripped synthetic fabric dye, because it's synthetic fabric, so synthetic dye is needed. It should be coming, actually, it might be coming tonight or tomorrow. Anyway, the point is, I'll be dyeing it tomorrow. I'm gonna do a test first because, you know, I don't want to ruin the whole thing. So we're going to test it and it should be fine. And then it'll be more blue. I don't know how blue. It could be too blue, which would be a nightmare, but we'll see. So that is, you know, first problem has arisen. But of course, it was inevitable. We're always going to have problems. Yeah, we're going to dye it. We're going to see what happens. Okay, hope for the best because I don't know. I don't know. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, dyeing anything is always a massive pain, but in this case it must be done. The fabric was just way too silver, so I used, like I said, Ritmore synthetic dye since the fabric is synthetic, so natural dyes are not gonna work. So how you're supposed to do it would be over a stove, but I didn't have access to a stove at this point. What I did have access to was boiling water in a kettle. So I made a makeshift dye bath in a bucket in my bath. Now it worked a tiny bit, but nowhere near enough since the heat was not high enough. So what I ended up doing after hours and hours of this was just leaving the fabric in the dye bath for ages before I could think of a better plan, which I will tell you about in a minute, but it does involve me actually doing it the proper way. It was very convoluted, but we got there in the end.
Doing an update, a positive update. So obviously I spent, oh my god, so long dyeing the fabric, and I was like, it hasn't worked. I literally left it in the dye bath for like a week, and then because it's synthetic dye and it reacts by being heated up, so what you're supposed to do is do it over like a stove, but because I had so much fabric, I didn't have a pot big enough. I was like, I can't do it over the stove. Also, I didn't want to like mess the stove up and my parents kill me, so I didn't do that. I was instead doing it in like a separate bucket with like really hot water, so I wasn't doing it properly anyway. But then what I did was I took the dye, like the water I had, and I heated that up. I boiled that over the stove. Okay, now I don't know if this makes any sense, but I was like, some of the water will evaporate, then it'll be more concentrated, and it'll be hot, so it might permeate better. I don't know what logic that is, but it was my logic and it worked. So hey, whatever logic, it worked. It's so much more blue now. I mean, oh, God's sake, you can't tell on cameras anyway because they're so flippin' annoying, but this is blue. And when I ordered it online and I was like, it's blue, and it came, I was like, that's great. But I had a little sample. Actually, do I have some here? Bear with. Oh my god, I do. Okay, you can't. You can't, but you can in person. Oh, no, I don't think you can on camera. This is grey, this is blue, and there is very much, when I'm looking at them next to each other, very different. Now this grey is a slightly bluish grey. Now this blue is a greyish blue, but it's blue, right? So the point is, it worked. Thank God. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, yes, that is blue, and I think it's like perfect. Really happy with the colour. So crisis averted. It worked out in the end. Trust the process. Trust the process. We trusted the process and it worked out. So next is actually so exciting.
So I then ironed all the pieces because they were so wrinkled from the dyeing process, with all the stirring and just being generally scrunched up in a bucket. It's nice because you can start to properly see the fabric shine once everything's all smoothed out. This is what the fabric looks like all ironed flat. I think you can really see the blue colour in this shot way better than anything else really, but it's a nice icy blue now and nice smooth and shiny. With everything dyed and ironed, I turned my attention to actually constructing the dress. I decided to work from the centre out to hopefully get the best size and shaping going on. I essentially fold over the raw edge and pin to this beige bias tape. This will sit between the blue pieces because this is where we're going to be doing all the hand stitching detail that you can see on the dress. When pinned on either side, I can then sew the fabric down using my machine, just using a straight stitch as per. Since the fabric is quite slippery, I'm careful when sewing so the stitching stays nice and neat. I essentially just repeat this process again and again, folding over and pinning the blue fabric and bias tape together. You can kind of see the shape it's creating. It's sort of this big triangle. The point is going to sit on my chest and the bottom will extend all the way to the floor. Because it flares out, that means it's going to have a bit of depth, so when you spin in it, it twirls out and generally just looks quite nice.
Okay, so I thought I'd give you an update about where we're at. So currently I'm starting to attach all the pieces together and I've obviously got like the bias in between. This is working so well. I don't know why. I was obviously like, well, I was hoping it would work because that was my plan. But also there was a part of me that was just like, I don't know. I was doubting. See, don't never doubt yourself. You know what you're doing. Yeah, it's attaching really nicely. Have a little look. Obviously it takes flipping ages, so for every single one I like pin it down and then sew it on the machine, and I'm going so slowly. Usually I'm a very speedy gal, especially on my machine, but I'm like going so slow. I'm like, be careful. And to be fair, it's paying off because it looks really neat. Do not look on the inside, absolutely abhorrent. I'm gonna try and neaten that up at some point, maybe use my overlocker, we'll see. But yeah, it's actually working out pretty well, and I'm so pleased with how the dye came out. I know I've already talked about that, but oh, perfect. Yeah, going good. So I think I'm just going to keep going. See you when I see you.
So I kept working on sewing the dress pieces, like I said, working from the centre out. This meant I could check everything was nice and symmetrical and was just sitting on my body nicely. It's probably also worth noting that when the bias is being sewn to the fabric, it sits underneath. So the blue fabric sits on top, if that makes sense. You can kind of see it in these clips, but I feel like that's just a detail I should bring up. You can also sort of see it in these clips that I'm quite often starting and stopping quite a lot. This is because the material is, like I said, quite slippery, and it just, even though it takes 10 times longer, it's just better to make sure that the fabric is going through the machine properly and it's going to sew nicely. With the centre panels sewn, I then moved on to sewing the side and back panels. Because of how much this fabric frays, I did use my overlocker quite a lot, just to nicely finish all of those edges. With the centerpieces sewn, I looked at the placement of the straps. There are 3 on either side which connect along the top of the dress at different points, then into one strap at the top. Later on, I'll attach the cape to these straps. Okay, then, when you maybe thought the most time-consuming part was over, we have the hand sewing. I'm not sure if you can really class this as embroidery or not, but I am using embroidery thread to create this sort of twisty stitch you see over the top of the bias tape. Luckily, the thread I had matched with my fabric almost perfectly, which was a win. I can't lie to you, I didn't really follow any tutorial for this stitch, but essentially all I was doing was creating 2 loops parallel to one another that connected in the middle, hence creating the twist. So 1 loose stitch forward, then diagonally under the back of the fabric to create another loose stitch that's parallel, except this one hooks onto the first loop. It sounds quite confusing, but once I got the hang of it, it was a fairly simple process. A bit fiddly, but the worst part was just that it was time consuming. I actually was working on these stitches right over the holidays, so Christmas Eve, Christmas Day and Boxing Day, as well as a few more days after that, between all the festivities with my family. Each strip of bias tape took multiple hours to cover, but it does look so effective and is just definitely worth it at the end. Alternatively, if you still wanted to go for that look without doing all of this effort, you could just use a ready-made trim to sort of connect the pieces together, which would still work. I just wanted to try my hand at the hand stitching that's actually in her dress. A break from hand stitching to do a try on so far. Still, we have to finish hand sewing, add the back panel, pearls, cape and hem, and also make a brooch. But I'm really happy with the drape and how it's coming along. I did run out of bias tape, and I do need to get some more though, which is why the bottom of the dress isn't closed up all the way, but we'll get there and you get the idea. So I then needed to add the back skirt panel. At the centre back and between the side and back panels, I added godets to the skirt, which are just these triangle pieces. This gives the skirt more depth, allowing it to flare out a bit more, which I really like. I used my overlocker for this, also neatening up certain areas like the top and the back. You don't need an overlocker, but this fabric was stretchy and frayed like crazy, so it really helped just neatening up all of those raw edges. Then I did a little test with the cape pinned onto the straps. I was really happy with how this was looking on, and this also meant I then knew where I was going to place and sew on the cape. Okay, so then was back to even more hand sewing because of course we weren't finished yet. Honestly, I probably should have filmed more of this, but I thought it would probably get boring after a while, because it was in fact quite a monotonous process, but we move. The good thing about a repetitive task is that you can kind of just fall into it and it becomes sort of muscle memory. So this is what the stitching is looking like up close. I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and like I said, totally worth it. A quick Padme hair test. So my hair is pretty dead straight normally, so I wanted to try some heatless curls just to get some volume and texture, and I think they turned out really well. I didn't do the full half up half down look, I just twisted the sides because I felt that worked with my hair for now, and I also just didn't have anything to put in my hair, so this is what we're working with. Okay, so next was adding the pearls. I hate how most stringed pearls that you can buy are weirdly spaced out, so I bought a pack of 6mm pearls instead and threaded them onto fishing wire. I made 6 of these strips, 3 for each side, with each one of them getting progressively bigger to get that draped look over my arms. I hand stitched them on the centre front and to the straps at the back, actually threading the fishing wire through the fabric so it was nice and secure. The last thing I wanted was for the pearls to break and fly everywhere. A quick look at the pearls all sewn on. I also made a brooch out of wire real quick and then I was done. So without further ado, let's look at what the final dress looks like, and I'll talk about it in just a sec. Okay, so you can probably tell, but I am so obsessed with how this dress turned out. I've wanted to make it for years, and I finally did. I also can't lie, I've had a bit of a confidence waver recently, and this is the first time in a while I felt super confident and happy with myself. Genuinely, the prequels have my heart. I am an Attack of the Clones gal, but Revenge of the Sith is also incredible and it has some wonderful Padme look. And she's done. Okay, so... Sorry, I need a minute. Okay, so here we have a finished Padme Amidala nightgown. Oh my god, guys, I actually can't. I'm so obsessed with how this looks. A moment for the back. Gorgeous. I actually finished this last week. I'm just editing the video, but I wanted you to see the hair, the dress, the vibes, everything. Obviously we had some issues. The colour, but we dyed it. Now I think she's the perfect blue, so winning. The hand stitching took forever, but it looks so good. Let me do a Sorry, that's my lightsaber throwing a hissy fit because it's out of charge. I don't have that problem with real lightsabers. Stitching, close up, the beads, and my hair as well. I actually really like my hair like this. I'm so proud of this project and how it turned out. I hope you enjoy it. I have not felt this good in a really long time. This outfit, I feel really confident and I just feel nice and I just love it, and I want to make so many more Padme dresses. I feel like this was a good place to start. Definitely her late dress at some point. I love how fluid that is and just like the movement. I think I like that with this dress as well, that it's very fluid and floaty, and I just love those vibes. But also what I was thinking is maybe doing a mashup, a bit like what I've done with Rapunzel, a Renaissance Padme dress. I'm thinking her picnic dress like could be quite cute. I don't know, I'm thinking of maybe doing some things like that. That could be really fun. Let me know, what Padme dress do you think I should make next? Because I'm definitely making more. Hello. She's been on my like list of dresses, characters to make for years, like actual years at this point, and it's just taken me so long to finally get around to actually doing it. So glad I did, and I don't know why it took me this long. Definitely should have done it sooner. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I love Padme, I love this dress. I'm so pleased, I'm so proud. What a way to end the year. I mean, technically it's the new year now, but making this was like end of 2025. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to like, maybe subscribe. I'll see you next time. Keep sewing.